Good morning. Welcome to the February Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board meeting. We are currently one person short for a quorum, but we are going to go ahead and get started with public comment, and then hopefully by the time we get to any resolution, we will have a quorum in place. Normally we have public comment. Anyone that would like to give up to 3 minutes of public comment to sign. We did not receive any signatures. Is there anyone that would like to give up to 3 minutes of public comment? Okay. I also have another brief announcement. You'll see that we are going to have sign language interpretation at all of our meetings. So I ask that when giving public comment and also the advisory board to speak a little bit slower, pause for longer periods so that the sign language interpreter can get caught up. Okay. Okay. I will, and with Jerome's presence, we now have a quorum. So good morning, Jerome.
Good morning, Jerome.
So I will go ahead and call roll. Lena Andrews. Here. Jamil Bay.
Here.
Joanna Deming.
Here.
Knowledge Hudson.
Here.
Jerome Jackson.
Here.
Ethel Johnson.
Here.
Teresa Kale Smith, not here. Majestic Lane, not here. Mark Masterson.
Here.
Samuel Sue.
Here.
Sonia Tillman, not here. Derek Tillman, not here. Diamante Walker, not here. Adrian Wanahall, not here. Looks like the first half of the alphabet did better, better with attendance. Kelly Ware Seabrung, not here. Megan Winters, here, representing the second half of the alphabet. Okay. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes from the December 10th meeting? Is there any questions, changes, modifications? All right, can I have a motion for acceptance?
So moved.
Jamil motions to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
Megan seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
So if you abstain if I
Yes,
wasn't here.
if you weren't here. Sam abstains. Lena abstains. Anybody else that wasn't here last month? Okay,
I was not here last month, but I
all right. Jerome abstains. Okay. All right, moving on. First up, the Montana building.
Okay.
Evan?
Oh, should we?
Do we need people to
recuse
step
ourselves
Oh,
first?
yes. If anyone needs to recuse themselves in accordance with our conflict of interest policy related to the rental gap program, we are into 2019 funds for rental gap. So if you think that an organization you are connected with will be applying for 2019 rental gap funds, please abstain. Please, get up, move to the general public.
All right, good morning. My name's Evan Miller with the Center for Housing Opportunities at the URA, and today I'm here to present the Rental Gap Program project for the Montana building, which is at 5456 Penn Avenue. Technically in the Friendship neighborhood. I think a lot of people consider the strip of Penn Avenue to be Garfield, but the applicant for this project is the Montana Development Corporation. They're a nonprofit that owns and operates this building. It's 16 units of affordable housing in a late or early 1900s, late 1800s apartment building in the neighborhood. It was purchased by the Montana Development Corporation, MDC, in 1992 and renovated at that time. And now, 28 years later, it's in need of additional upgrades, mostly to the exterior of the building, but then also interior repairs such as common area electrical, new furnaces, kitchen appliances and cabinets. Shape Development Group is the contractor who will be managing the project. It's altogether about a $680,000 endeavor. They have currently debt on the property from their original renovation in 1992 from in the amount of about $90,000. And basically this time around in the 2020 project that they're undertaking, they're going to secure a loan from PNC to refinance that debt, and then a $400,000 request from the Housing Opportunity Fund rental gap program to round out the $675,000 total project costs. So looking at the terms of the HOF rental gap program loan, it would be for 35 years with a 0% interest rate with a to-determined percentage of cash flow annually as the repayment on the RGP loan. 4 of the 16 units in the building will be rented to households at or below 30% AMI, and the remaining 12 will be rented to households at or below 50% AMI. And MDC has agreed to accept a permanent deed restriction on these properties, which is a very significant investment in affordable housing in that area of the city for a century to come, basically. So we've broken down the uses in the packet. I won't get completely into that, but BGC was one of the founding members of Montana Development Corporation and remains a presence on their board today. And so when it comes to supportive services, there's not a defined supportive services plan. However, this project, as well as the other units that are operated in conjunction with BGC in the area, do have the support of the group should residents need any type of assistance while living there. Minority and women business enterprise participation. This project does trigger the requirements by the URA Performance and Compliance Department. So before closing, there will have to be a final MWBE plan in place. But as of right now, the project's in good standing with their initial efforts. So here today we have Rick Swartz from Bloomfield Garfield Corporation, and then also Doug Van Heitzma from Shape Development Group. So I will turn it over to the advisory board for any questions, and the representatives in attendance are free to make comments as well.
Are there any questions? Doug and Rick, can you come up? Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, just that this is a building with 8 one-bedroom apartments and 8 two-bedroom apartments. We've been able to hold the rents to a very reasonable levels over the years. But of course, what that has done is that has taxed our ability to build up reserves for the kind of capital improvements that we're going to make to the building. The building on the exterior, probably 60% of the budget will be spent on the exterior of the building. The building needs repointed on 3 sides. That front facade needs repainted. We have fire escapes on both sides of the building that sections of those escapes are going to need to be replaced. And on the interior, we thought, since we're going to get kind of one bite at the apple, let's go ahead and replace furnaces. Let's replace air conditioner units on the roof. Let's go ahead and do some roof replacement. We've got about $32,000 budgeted for roof replacement. So the intent here is to prolong the useful life of the building, to improve over time the cash flow on the building. We do raise rents on an annual basis, but generally those increases are limited to 2 to 3% a year. So we have a good mix of tenants in the building, most of whom go to work every day, and the rents that we charge are within the ability of somebody making less than $24,000 a year to be able to afford. Doug can tell you a little bit more about the renovation program if you have questions about that.
Are there any questions for Rick or Doug?
Wondering how you came up with the loan versus grant amounts.
Well, that's a good question. Maybe I'll let Doug, you want to address that question?
Well, in terms of PNC Bank had the existing mortgage on it, and so they had an appraisal done on the property. And so they were able to figure out what they were able to carry as the first position lender. The URA grant then,
The URA is a loan, the
I'm
HOF
sorry.
is a loan.
The URA funding,
okay.
the loan is essentially is covering the gap of what needed to be done in order to make this work.
The original loan on the building came out at 8.5%, so you're going back to 1992. The new loan will probably be somewhere around 4%. With a longer amortization period, we can actually borrow more from the bank than we did originally. So the goal was to try to leverage as much bank capital to the project as we could, and then have the URA funding backfill the difference. So we didn't start with the URA first. We actually started with PNC first. And
Right, which is the way we like to see it. So just to kind of clarify a little bit, for the rental gap program, we do not give grants. We record, it's always a loan. It's based on their ability to repay. So part of the underwriting review that the staff does is to look at their rents, look at their operating expenses, look at the debt coverage they have for their bank, and then figure out if they have any room to pay us or if we need to be based on what we call cash flow, which is any additional cash flow they have after paying their operating expenses every year. A lot of the deals that you have seen, including this one, are based on cash flow. But you've seen at least one that I can think of, if not more than that, where their rents were actually going to be high enough to pay us on a monthly basis.
And part of the PNC funds will recapitalize the replacement reserve on the building. So we've drained that reserve down to barely a few $1,000s. We want to increase that again because as we move forward with unit turnover, you generally have to go to the replacement reserve to get the apartment back into leasable condition. In 2018, we had 3 tenants all decide to move out within 60 days of each other. And it left us looking at about $15,000 in costs to prepare those units to be released. So that became, I think, the driving factor in looking at the overall condition of the building itself and not trying to just piece together the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. We needed to get the building back onto a more stable financial footing, and we needed to protect the integrity of the structure itself. The masonry walls, the roof, the fire escapes, all that needs to be addressed. And once that work is done, then we have probably another 25 to 30 years before we come back and look at other capital improvements. But we won't be repointing the brick again in 25 years. We won't be replacing the fire escapes in 25 years. Those should last well beyond that period of time. The fire escapes on the building today are over 100 years old.
What's the ownership structure of the Montana Development Corporation?
It started out as a partnership between the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation, Friendship Development Associates, which is now out of business, and the East End Cooperative Ministry, which bought both the Montana building and the Idaho building next door. In the last several years, the East End Cooperative Ministry and Friendship Development Associates have withdrawn from the board, and we are reconstituting the board that will have membership from the BGC, but the Garfield Land Trust, which is now being formed and is going for their own tax exempt status, is going to be brought on to the membership of this board, with the idea that even if the BGC at some point in time were to step out or withdraw from the board of the Montana Development Corporation, the land trust would be firmly positioned to hold the building as affordable housing permanently. So we're trying to bring the land trust more now into what I would call a leadership role within the neighborhood around preserving long-term affordable housing.
Next question is, and it's maybe a URA or
Sure.
staff question. It goes to the rankings and supportive services. It's saying in here that BGC is going to provide supportive services, yet they got 0 points for supportive services in the scoring. How
Yeah,
does
that
that
might be
work?
an error. I'll let Evan.
I mean, it's not quite, because there's not a budget involved in the application to provide it, but it's worth mentioning that it's not just an apartment building that exists in a vacuum. There is the support of the BGC. So just based on the scoring criteria, it got it didn't meet like any of the
But
ones that accumulate points.
we
But we
can adjust
Maybe
that
we
up,
need to
yeah.
look at that as we go forward. And then the radon, has the building been tested? I'm unclear on the scoring here for radon baseline. Has the building been tested for radon?
Not recently, but that'll be part of the construction project.
And what, maybe I misunderstand what that means, is a no in the radon baseline. In the item 7 on the
Evan, do you know?
page 2.
here I don't have a copy of the scoring.
Yeah, it's just that number 7, the radon baseline is a no.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit that as far as if that needs to be done before application or.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what it means when I'm
I think
looking
it
at
came out of our kind of green standards to see if, I mean, I think what it means is your radon is less than whatever, the number is where you have to treat for it. I think that's what it means, but I think we probably do not look at it correctly when we review these, and it will be part of, for those of you that were here last week, we talked about kind of revising our scoring system when we go to funding rounds, so we'll make sure to address that.
We work with the tenants fairly closely in the building. We have a management agent who collects rents, pays the bills, and handles what I would call very conventional responsibilities. But many of the tenants come to our office to pay the rent, and we interact with them on a regular basis. So we've had several tenants who have fallen behind in their rent, and we've been able to get them to the Housing Opportunity Fund rent stabilization program. We have an employment center. If a tenant loses a job, we can work with them to find a new job. We don't have many children living in the building, probably all of maybe 2 or 3 children. So, but we have programs in the community if kids need an after-school program to go to. So we have the ability to work with tenants who are facing any kind of issues or complicating factors in their life.
Megan?
I was going to ask if there are accessible units within the building.
No, this building is not wheelchair accessible. It wasn't built to be. We don't have an elevator system in the building, so no, it is not accessible.
Yeah, for new construction, of course, we look at it for existing buildings, sometimes there's not a lot we can do unless the costs are, except to incur a lot of costs to do that. I'm sorry, except for? To incur a lot of costs to do that.
What utilities are the tenants responsible for?
Gas and electric. We have gas forced air heat, and we have electric air conditioning and lighting systems. So it's just gas, electric. We cover water and sewage and all other expenses related to the operation of the building.
The appliances and the systems that are going to be replaced, are they going to be, so there's no score for Energy Star or efficient appliances?
Well, when we replace appliances, we go with Energy Star appliances.
So that's
As a-
another opportunity here that we didn't get
Okay,
in the
points.
scoring.
We will revise the point scoring system. To date, we score them to help you understand the project, but we haven't really had to, use it to filter out applications.
If I can just make one last comment, I think everybody in this room realizes the challenge of keeping apartments maintained on low-income rents. But going through that building and taking lots of subcontractors through that building, a comment that I would regularly hear is, oh, this is really well maintained. The tenants always say, we really like living here. BGC and that Montana Development Corp really should be congratulated for maintaining a really nice building over an awful long time on very low rents.
Yeah, I would like to echo that, absolutely. And for those of you familiar with this neighborhood, Friendship Neighborhood values have gone up all around this building since the time that the Montana Corporation purchased it, and they are to be commended to keeping the rents affordable. Any other questions?
So currently the building is fully occupied. So as far as when the renovations, how will that affect the, residents?
So most of the work won't involve being in the units. Most of that value of the work is on the outside in the common areas. The work that is contemplated for being inside the units are things that will not require vacating the unit. We can go in and replace a kitchen in a day, replace work on the windows. All that can happen without having any displacement.
We have, these are not large apartments, so if you're going to repaint an apartment in a building like this, you literally would have to move all the tenants' furniture out into the hallway to accomplish that. So we thought rather than do that, let's at least focus on kitchens, bath areas if those need improvements, things that will not greatly inconvenience the tenant. And then when we have someone who moves out, then we will go in and do repainting, recarpeting. That's why we wanted to boost the replacement reserve on the building, anticipating that will happen down the line. So tenants were very anxious when we started bringing contractors to the building. We get letters from investors every month asking if this building is for sale. So when everybody saw the cluster of contractors outside the building, rumors spread through the building that we were selling the building. We had to tamp down those rumors and tell them, no, that's not what's going on. But there is a lot of displacement that is happening in these neighborhoods right now. It's fair to say.
What's the makeup of I don't know if this is okay to ask, but the makeup of your tenants?
Yeah, we have 16 units. 13 are occupied by African American households and 3 by white households.
Seniors?
Yes,
children,
we
so no
probably
children.
have, I'm going to say 3 to 4 senior tenants, one of whom is uses the Housing Choice Voucher Program for her rent. The others pay themselves. We have husband and wives with children in the very top floor. They were displaced from a house in Garfield about 6 months ago. We were able to move them into the building. So it's a nice mix of people. It's a quiet building, not a lot of activity. So everybody seems to get along fairly well.
What's the average rent?
For the one-bedroom apartments, we're probably at about, I'm going to say $475 a month. We're pushing towards $500 a month on the one bedrooms. The two bedrooms range from $575 to $650 a month.
So this truly is a really needed and great resource for the Friendship community. Can we move toward, if there's no other questions, can we move towards a motion?
To approve. Oh, you had a question?
I was going to motion, but then I thought I was more careful because then you have to read all of this.
Motion to approve the recommendation that of rental gap program funding in the amount of $400,000 for the redevelopment of the Montana building. Did you read the whole thing?
Yes,
The
please.
deed restriction will be tied to 4 units at or below 30% AMI and 12 units at or below 50% AMI. The commitment will expire on June 6th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, Joanna first, Jamil seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you. I just want to give a
Oh,
little shout out to
They
the-
already abstained, right.
Janie Cooper at PNC Bank, who used to work at URA, was extremely helpful in bringing this project together for us.
Thanks. All right, thank you. Next up, the Givner Building.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brett Morgan, and I'm with the URA's Center for Housing Opportunities. And today I'm presenting to you all a $120,000 rental gap program loan for the complete rehab of 627 North Homewood Avenue. It's better known as the Givner Building. It's located at the intersection of Kelly Street and North Homewood Ave in the Homewood South neighborhood. We have Operation Better Block, who is acting as the borrower, developer, and nonprofit applicant. They will also be the service provider and the property manager. We also have Action Housing on the project, who's acting as the development consultant.
And real quick, just on that note, I will mention that Jerome Jackson is a member of the HF Advisory Board. He's the executive director of Operation Better Block. He has abstained and left the table for this action.
So the project itself, the idea is to create 2 ground floor affordable commercial spaces, and the second and third floors will have 6 affordable units, all 1 bedroom, 1 bath. There will also be room in the basement. It's 756 square feet for tenant storage, and the adjacent lot will be cleared for green space when the project's completed. Regarding the actual units, though, 4 of them will be at or below 50%, and the other 2 will be at or below 80%. All of them are going to be at 550 square feet approximately. As I mentioned, they're all 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and the rent for all 6 will be $943 a month. That is utilizing the Housing Authority's rehab payment standard. The thing is that the 4 units at 50% AMI or below, those will be rented out to Housing Choice Voucher eligible tenants. The other 2 at 80% will just have to meet that threshold of being at or below 80% AMI. So with me today, I would like to introduce Mr. Lataj Tinker from Operation Better Block and Ms. Gabrielle DeMarchi as well from Operation Better Block. If you want to answer any questions. The financing itself, as I mentioned, it's a $120,000 rental gap program loan, 0% annual interest rate. It'll be over a course of a 30-year term. I'll be splitting 50% cash flow with another URA loan, $280,000 RIDUP loan. And again, all 6 of these units will have a 99-year affordability period on them. So,
And it is worth mentioning, when you look at the sources and uses on here, the request to HOF is $120,000 because they do at a project of this scale neighborhood, it was really hard for them to get 30% AMI units and to make the math work at all. So they have 4 50% AMI units, and our guidelines are 30,000 per unit for 50. So that's why it's 120 for us. But because of the community nature of the development, with 2 ground floor commercial spaces to go to local businesses, and then with all 4 units being, workforce or affordable housing, the URA also is putting in other resources into this project as well. Lataj, do you have anything you want to add?
I'd just like to add to everything Brett said. This project has been in planning mode for the last 6 years, I presume. This building has sat vacant for, I presume, about 20 years, so the residents are very excited to see this building renovated. Not only to see this blighted building taken care of on such a prominent street, but the importance that it brings to Homewood's business district.
Yeah.
How many square feet total is like the entire building, commercial and residential, roughly?
It is about 11,000 square feet.
The city owns the building right now, and we'll be transferring the building to the URA, who will transfer it to Operation Better Block. Are there any other questions, comments, motions?
I'd make a motion to recommend the approval of the rental gap program funding in the amount of $120,000 for the redevelopment of the Gibner Building in Homewood. The deed restriction will be tied to 4 units at or below 50% area median income. The commitment will expire June 6, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Kelly seconds. Mark first, Kelly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck on the project. Okay, next on the agenda was a presentation by the Fair Housing Partnership. Just a couple of comments on this. We have been working with them over the last couple months. A lot of you know that they come to the advisory board often with questions, and the staff has met with them and gone through a lot of their questions, and together we're working with them about how to track the data that they would like to see regarding affirmatively furthering fair housing. And they're also pulling some of their own resources together. They were on the schedule today to speak and do about a 30-minute presentation to the advisory board. They contacted me yesterday and said due to one of their staff folks being out of the office for a while and not really being able to get the presentation ready, they requested to put it off. It'll probably happen in April. But I did want you to know that these conversations have been happening. Kelly was also part of one of the meetings we had with them. Kelly is the Fair Housing representative on the advisory board. All right, so moving on to a couple of general updates. Jeremy is here to talk about the HSP program.
So we had the HSP coordinated entry RFP out for about 2 weeks. It closed yesterday and received 1 response from United Way 211 to be the coordinated entry provider. So we will be moving forward with that. Depending on how long contracts take in our process and some meetings we will need to get with them before actually starting, we're hoping that we can actually start coordinated entry sometime between late February and early March.
What happened? I mean, weren't we doing the United Way and
Yes.
and
Right.
we're now not, but now we are again?
So what happened was, yes, we were working with United Way. When we got United Way the contract, they had some questions about some content that's in our government contract. At the URA, we have 2 different kinds of contracts. We have one when we publicly procure, and we have one when it's kind of a non-public procurement process. And the language that they had concerns with was language that goes in when it's not publicly procured. So in order for them to feel comfortable, we needed to publicly procure it. And we did talk to them that when we publicly procure, we will, highly consider anyone that responds to it. It just so happens that only one, which was United Way, responded. So now we will move forward through the contracting process with United Way.
How much was the contract that we were trying to get before? Like
$9,000.
$9,000. Is there any way that I know the city, the Alcosan, PwC, they all have thresholds on the contracts that they put out when it's going to be sole source, if there's somebody that's uniquely qualified, which
We do have those thresholds. It wasn't the threshold that was the issue. We were able to actually sole source it the first time because it was under our threshold. It was really United Way having questions regarding our contract that we could not change unless we publicly procured it.
What were the questions? Like,
I mean, I
what's
would-
in there? What is in the URA contract that they had questions about for? Is there something that's?
I would probably need our attorneys to kind of delve into that in
I
detail,
don't want
but
to take all the
yeah.
time. I'm just curious as to what would cause somebody not to do something, and we have people that are sort of in crisis that aren't getting served.
Any other questions on that part?
They start.
Depending on how fast contracts get through in meetings, late February to early March.
Okay.
Before going to the other update slides, two other things we wanted to update you on. April 30th, we will be having our second annual Fair Housing Resource Fair. It'll be at the URA, and we'll have all of our community partners there and all of our URA resources, and we'll be using the slate of consultants for community outreach for that event.
Yeah, just to kind of update on that, we've had more interest recently from consultants to be added to our slate. So we've added a couple more firms recently. I think we're a little bit over 10 firms. So we will be reaching out to all the firms and asking them, to put a very brief, small proposal together for their services to help us really recruit as many people as possible to hear about the fair, to come hear about home ownership. And rental resources. A lot of you know that right now in the city, NeighborWorks is administering a neighborhood lift down payment program. The URA has a program. The Housing Authority has a program. There are a lot of resources right now for folks, and we just want to make sure we can get as many people as possible to this event that we have. So you'll hear a lot more about it over the next couple months. How many people were at the event we had last year? Yeah, so most of you were there, and you saw it was pretty well attended, and we want to try to beat the attendance. And additionally, a lot of the vendors that participated last year, HUD and the Housing Authority, and some of the nonprofits, they've said to us, "Are you doing this again this year?" Because it's a really good time for the local HUD staff, the local PHFA staff, to come out and interact with the community as well.
And building off of that, another event that will be happening later this month. Fatina, I forgot the date for the Lenders Breakfast. February 28th, there is a flyer in your packet. If you could help distribute that to your networks, Bettina can get you more if you need that. But essentially, we're trying to get the down payment and closing cost assistance program deployed to more households. So we will be meeting with the area lenders and bankers to try to get more of their participation to help push the down payment program.
Yeah, so if you work with lenders, through your day job, please get that word out to us. We had a breakfast, when we started this probably last March, and we feel like we need to do it again and see if we can get more bankers in the room. We've also seen, a lot more online loans as we've been working with, trying to close these through Quicken Loans and others like that. But we want to make sure that the local lenders are aware of the program and utilizing it.
And can you all send us this electronically so we
Yes.
can distribute it?
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing, an update on the Small Landlord Fund. This was brought to the advisory board for some guidance a couple months ago. As a reminder, Small Landlord Fund is not funded by HOF, but we will be starting that later this month. We'll be doing a soft launch with the Housing Authority, as the intention of this program is to help bring more units online that can rent out to housing choice voucher holders. So that's the update on that. Any questions?
What can you all give us the information of when that soft launch will take place?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're still working out final process details, but we will
But
let you
really
know.
soon.
Yeah,
It's
in the
gonna
next
be
couple
really soon.
weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Housing Authority help market that as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been meeting weekly with the Housing Authority on this, so.
And we've already built out a process between the two agencies for landlord referrals and the inspections and all of that. And as a reminder, it's $20,000 per unit, up to $60,000 per project.
Up to, like in our conversations with the Housing Authority, sometimes it's $2,000, $3,000 that fail a unit, that they just need $3,000 or $4,000 worth of work. So we might do a lot smaller loans, which will be fine. We can just get more units, online with that.
Yeah, the loan terms will be 5 to 10 years, and there'll be an affordability period for the length of the loan, even if the principal is paid off early.
Okay. Thanks. Bettina?
Good morning, everyone. So these are just the monthly updates that we have. This map shows all the commitments and closings for all the HOF programs. Evan, if you want to switch over. These are the programmatic updates that show what's allocated, committed, and not yet committed. One thing to note is that the HSP line item now does include households that have completed the program and households who are currently in the process of completing the program. So that includes like money that's out the door from HSP and then money that we have committed to households.
And just real quick, on the rental gap line, I think that's before the 2 we did today. Is that? Yeah. So that number does not count the Givner building and the Montana building that we did today. So we're down, another 600,000. So we have about 500,000 remaining in the 2019 rental gap program line item. So I suspect that you'll probably see maybe next month we'll draw that completely down, and then at that point is when we'll set up a committee to help us think through sort of the way we review the funding rounds. We will probably then, once we get to 2020 funding, we will then do the funding round sometime in the summer. And since I just mentioned it, the 2020 funds will be introduced, the legislation will be introduced at council on Tuesday, and then we will be meeting with council members to walk them through the legislation, and then it will be discussed the following Wednesday.
Right, and along those lines too, HSP will be opening up the RFP for service providers for the 2020 funds. We had, I believe, 4 volunteers who volunteered to review the applications, which included Adrian, Ethel, Mark, and Sonia, and myself will be on that committee to review the applications. We just have received a lot of interest from other social service providers who wanted to provide this service throughout the city. So that is why we decided to open up the RFP process again for the HSP 2020 funds.
Yep. Are there any other questions on this slide?
Question about the current providers. Do we have any feedback or sense of how things have been going with the current providers?
Jeremy, do you want to speak to that?
So generally, things have been going well. There were a few months where we needed to all get on track in terms of internal process, referrals, invoicing. But at this point, Brianna has been the lead and has been doing a great job getting the providers the support they need to get them all to the same place of getting on-time invoices and just kind of getting comfortable with our processes. Brianna also hosts monthly meetings with the service providers. Part of that is working through all of the issues with process and policies, but at this point we're in a really good spot. Everyone's at capacity and moving through their queue pretty well.
But I mean, I'll reemphasize the demand has been overwhelming, and the providers have been a little overwhelmed at times. So if you are hearing feedback, that people are kind of waiting, there is a bit of a wait. We, wanted to have a program that was immediate, but just due to the overall demand, there's a bit of a wait.
Yeah, I mean, the wait time for the HSP program is very similar to the wait times with the other county assistance programs for rental assistance.
Any progress with the homeowner assistance program in terms of finding more contractors and getting that rolling?
Yes. So we've kind of gone back and forth as to if contracts need to, be brought to this advisory board. But there are 3 for-profit contractors that are going to join on to the program, primarily to work on what we are now calling HAP Plus, which is the households between 50 and 80% AMI, but there may be some overlap with HAP. And we already had one for-profit contractor. So we are now up to, after the URA board meeting, we'll be up to 4 for-profit contractors and 6 not-for-profit program administrators.
How many, what's the backlog in that look like? Is there, it seemed like, my impression was the last time we got a report was that there are a lot of people that were in the process, but
yeah,
that we didn't have contractors, or there was something that there were bottlenecks. It looked like it might have been contractors, but is that?
I mean, Chairman, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, some of it is contractors, but some of it is just nonprofit capacity. But bringing on that for-profit contractor to help with the HAP backlog has really helped. So to answer your question, currently there's about 72 projects assigned under construction with the providers, and another 75 on the waiting list.
So 70 are in the works right now. Like they're looking at bidding. They're bidding it out to subs.
And that's just for HAP or HAP and HAP Plus? Or
well, it's primarily just HAP.
That's
right?
just for HAP.
Yeah.
We haven't officially launched HAP Plus yet, but there's about 30 on the waiting list for that.
Right. Right. And so what we do, and Derek is here too, he can speak to this a little bit better than I can, but once somebody applies, they get a response from us pretty immediately between Doran and Derek within, a few days or a week. They check their income, they check to see if their name is on the deed, and they check taxes. And if all 3 of those things are within the programmatic requirements, then a letter is sent to the homeowner. So within a week, the problem is that the letter does then say, there might be a wait before a program administrator contacts them. So if you do, hear from people saying, yeah, I got a letter, but nobody's called me, they're in a bit of that waiting period.
And have any of the HAP projects been completed?
Yes.
How many?
I'm trying to think.
Done?
Yeah.
Oh, 7 have been
7
completed.
to 10.
Are we having issue? Like, how did that end of the process work with city inspectors? And we're trying to do a lot with maybe not a lot in some of the houses that we're probably getting involved in, or the
Right.
providers are working with.
Yes, I mean, that is a correct statement, and this is something that we've been sorting through. So our program administrators have been going into people's houses, and sometimes there's a lot of need. And the program is capped at $30,000. So it's really about identifying, maybe there's 7 things that need done, but what are the 3 biggest health and safety, issues, and do those, correctly. Don't try to do 7 things, not fully, but do 3 things fully or 4 things fully. That's really what we're working on now. And the URA, we have a good working relationship with, permits, licenses, and inspections, and we are, checking to make sure things, are past those inspections as well.
Okay.
Create a little working group to look at this. I think we had talked about kind of just having some time to look at this, and because 7 people, 10 people in a year, is that accurate?
In 7 months?
Yeah. It's not been a year. It's been since, probably June-ish. I mean, there was a learning curve for the program administrators too. I mean, there was. I think the number I'd like you to focus on a little bit more is that 70 are currently, out there and in the process of having program administrators and now these contractors working with them. And they are, I mean, these are not easy because these are houses that need a lot of repair, and pulling off the roof often shows other issues that they didn't know was there. So these are really not easy.
That's why we need people that are experienced, like, with doing that. So,
Yes.
like, rebuilding together, that's like their bread and butter. And I would imagine that's why it baffles me, because I feel like them alone, I mean, they do 100, 200 houses a year. So how could 6 providers have completed 7 projects? That's
I don't
baffling.
really want to speak for them, except the
Okay.
scope of some of their programs might be different than this scope.
Okay.
Just, it's just all very different, and them learning our process and, getting past code inspection and everything. It's just different. I feel like, we're still in the first year of operations of these programs, and, like I said, focus on the fact that we have 70 out there in the bidding process right
That's
now.
good. I just think if we can change, I'm sure you're working on this, but changing some things to improve efficiencies, maybe there's things that we could do differently that speed it along.
And a question for clarity. So I think you mentioned 6 service providers, 3 now for-profit contractors.
Yep.
Are the service providers actually doing work? I know that Rebuilding Together Pittsburgh is, but the others,
Some of them hire subs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they may just be kind of overseeing and hiring subs as opposed
Yeah.
to.
And then they're running their process to do that, which might delay it a little bit as well, like if they're doing a bidding process with their subs.
But Joanna, we have heard from the providers that getting quality contractors is a problem.
And do the contractors have to front the money, right? I mean, this is public money.
No, we give a portion of, I think it's 10%.
The providers can take 10% of their contract as prepayment to help float that money.
Contractors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on that?
One HSP question, actually. We had discussed a number of times the appeal process and how that worked, and I was just curious as to whether or not, I believe we were waiting for the 211 to come online before doing that. Is that still where we're at?
It's already been started, the appeal committee. It's just that we've only had one that has needed that had to be reviewed. We haven't received any other appeal requests.
Okay, because if I remember correctly, we were going to go backwards and try to see who we may have missed in the process.
Correct.
Before it was established, and kind of see where we are. I'm just a little bit concerned as we're thinking about bringing on new providers that we'd be able to actually evaluate who's already doing it, and what kind of complaints or if there's any pattern that we should be aware of with them before giving them more money, or with other people before bringing them online. So that's kind of where that's coming from.
Yeah, and
I want to add really quickly. So there is it's imperative that we right size our contractor pool to match the need in the communities right now. And as much as I'm a fan of data analysis, I support it, but I can tell you that in the moment, I get 20 emails a week about people waiting to have their needs addressed. And so we're losing affordable housing because we don't have the desire to use program administrators and to keep dollars local. That's something that I think we remain committed to, but we also need to be very sober about the fact that you need high capacity contractors to address these issues at scale. There was a meeting in Homewood yesterday where there were several complaints about the speed and the response of the contractors in the inspections, and we need to fix that immediately. So I think we can do this simultaneously. I think we can analyze the data. We have some real-time feedback. I'll show you my emails. That will be illuminating, but we really need to get high-capacity contractors in the bullpen if we really want the program to be effective.
We're talking about the rental gap or the
That's
HAP?
about the HAP program. So
Okay, I thought, okay, yeah. But where are we with looking at the rental gap like the appeal process?
The HSP.
HSP. Okay, I'll get these acronyms right. Maybe another couple of months here. HSP. Where are we on the appeal like, how does that work? If somebody feels that, hey, there was what happens if I'm somebody that thinks, hey, you looked at income wrong, or you denied that I do have a sustainability plan, whatever we're calling it. How does that work if somebody feels that they should have a second look?
So what would happen? Brianna, you want to come up and explain the process?
Do they get a notice every time they apply? Like, here's the appeal process, here's the result, here's the appeal process?
Greetings, everyone. So generally what will happen when it comes to an appeal, if a person is denied assistance based on the unit is outside of the city of Pittsburgh, they don't meet the income requirements, the program provider will send out a denial letter, and attached with that is a letter of how they can appeal, whether they can text a number, email, or they can call. And they do have 10 days from the date of the appeals to be within the standards of whatever the continuum of care their process is for making an appeal. So generally, that is how a person can appeal. And an email will be compiled and sent to the appeals committee for them to review it within 7 days, and the person should hear back within a week or so.
And who's the appeals committee?
So that consists of Kelly, Deanna, Elena, Bettina, and I'm missing one person. Oh, Adrian. So 5 people.
So that's just what I was referencing, is that we were in that conversation discussing what happened to people that were denied before the process was in place. And I know one of the things we were talking about is that would be easier to get that data once we had a centralized point of contact. So with this early March, I was just curious as to how that timeline was working.
And just to piggyback off of your point, Kelly, I did send all of the providers an email letting them know to send me the individuals that they have denied. And I do go through our HSP Central site, and if I see someone who hasn't been inspected or it's been stagnant, I do send an email out with those individuals and ask them what's going on. And then what I've come across is the person's been denied, or they found a way to self-resolve their situation. Any other questions regarding the appeals?
Okay. All right. Thanks. I think, Bettina, we have one more slide, right? Right here. This is just breaking out the households. Okay. Thanks. And then next slide, Evan. We already went over the down payment. Couple other announcements. One of the rental gap program borrowers, the Center Avenue YMCA, is holding a groundbreaking on Valentine's Day at, I think, 10:30 in the morning. So wanted to make sure the advisory board, Action Housing, also wanted to make sure that request was put into the advisory board that if you would like to attend that event. We've also had a couple other large closings recently. Some of the deals that you've seen earlier. The Leamington home closed right before the holidays. For those of you, that drive through East Liberty, the construction you see coming up behind the McDonald's was funded by the Housing Opportunity Fund. I just drove by that this morning. I went a different way to work than usual, and I was like, wow, there it is. Like, you can see it. It's under roof, which is great. To just start to really see the results of what we've been doing here the last year. And our next meeting is March 5th here. Does anyone else have any comments or questions before I open it up to public comment again?
Just if you can send out, if it's for the groundbreaking email, or, send out the time, date, location.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, it is customary that if we have time at the end of the meeting, we open up one more time for 3 minutes apiece of public comment. Is there anyone that would like to give 3 minutes of public comment? state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Jennings. I am standing here on behalf of City of Bridges Community Land Trust, which I've been hired to full-time with benefits, y'all. Yay. Sorry, City of Bridges Community Land Trust. And I'm also standing here as PPSA. So I want to piggyback what Jessica just said. Yes, PPSA has been working with Tract Development for the new development over in East Liberty behind the McDonald's. So yes, it's up in, okay. Penn Plaza Support and Action Coalition is PPSA, I'm sorry. Thanks, Celeste. So yes, the project is underway. It looks beautiful. I am hard at work with trying to get as many Penn Plaza residents that got displaced from the Penn Plaza apartment complex to come back to that area. For those apartments, we have 37 units that are allocated to Penn Plaza residents first. So that's really, really exciting. Also, I want to, on behalf of City of Bridges, I want to give a shout out to you guys. We have 6 of our permanently affordable housing that we're working on in Lawrenceville for CLT. 3 are already ready for sale. We have an open house this Saturday. If you're interested, please talk to me afterwards to view that. And then we have 3 more coming up in mid-April. So I just want to say thanks, and I'm back to all the meetings and active while getting paid for it. Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Next, Celeste.
Is it morning or afternoon? I don't have my cell phone. Okay, good morning, and happy Black History Month. So, sorry I was late. There was a lot of traffic. I know I missed the beginning of the meeting. It's not on the agenda, but I know there was a call around the admin budget, and I was wondering if that information will be available to the public around the admin budget for the House Opportunity Fund for last year and for the proposed budget for this year. So I wanted to ask about that. I also wanted to say some good things around Jeremy and the program staff. People have been like Facebook messaging me and needing help with like getting connected, or they didn't get a call back, and he has really been coming through. So I'm really happy about that. Even an elder in Sugar Top that needs the Happy program that will be able to be connected to that. So I think that's really cool, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I don't really have too much more to say, except for we're in year 3, and that's really exciting for me. I think I want to call this like the year of intention. Hopefully we can slow down some of these processes and see what's working, what's not working, and really getting the people that need these resources the most connected to them, because that is the goal. So that's all I want to say, and happy Black History Month again. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment? Okay. I'm not hearing any additional public comment. So
The admin something, the budget something for next meeting.
the advisory board did a call on the budget, and also in accordance with the legislation, that administrative budget will be discussed in the annual report. If there isn't any other questions, I move to end.